I don't know where to start. I guess it was during Operation Surak Basta in 2011, out in the mountains of Paktika Province, Afghanistan. I was a rifleman with the Company C, 101st Airborne Division, pulling security on a ridgeline we called Hell's Teeth. It was as bleak as the name sounds: craggy peaks, thin air, and an enemy you couldn't see until it was too late. We'd been out there for days, running low on sleep, MREs, and patience. The mission was simple: secure the ridge and keep an eye on the valley below for insurgent movement. But nothing about Paktika was ever simple. Even when it was quiet, there was this tension in the air, like the whole landscape hated us. I didn't believe in curses or bad omens back then, at least not until that night. We were pulling shifts, taking turns manning a small overwatch post we'd thrown together with sandbags and concertina wire. The night was moonless, pitch black except for the faint green glow of our NVGs. Everything looked cold and alien through those lenses, the rocks and trees warped into eerie shapes. Around 0200, it was my turn to take watch. I was posted up with my rifle, scanning the valley for anything that didn't belong. At first, everything seemed normal, quiet, uneventful. Just the wind howling through the mountains and the occasional rustle of loose gravel. Then I saw them. 3 lights. At first I thought it was an aircraft, maybe a UAV or even a helicopter running dark. But these lights weren't moving like anything I'd ever seen. They hovered in a perfect triangle, about 200 meters above the valley floor, completely silent. I stared, waiting for them to blink or move. But they didn't. They just hung there, glowing faintly, like they were watching. I radioed my squad leader, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sir, I've got eyes on something unusual." His response crackled through my earpiece. "Unusual how? Enemy movement?" "Negative," I said, my voice shaking. "It's lights, 3 of them, hovering." He told me to stay focused, to keep watching, but I could tell he didn't believe me. Hell, I didn't believe me. And then they moved. Not gradually, like a plane turning, but instantly. One moment they were above the valley, and the next they were right above our position. My NVGs flared, the bright light almost blinding me, and I had to rip them off. That's when everything went wrong. The lights got brighter and brighter until they filled the entire sky. I could feel the heat on my face, hear this low-frequency hum that rattled my teeth. My squad mates were yelling, but their voices sounded distant, like they were underwater. And then, nothing. The next thing I knew, it was daylight. I was lying on the ground, my rifle a few feet away. My squad was gone, and my helmet was missing. I staggered to my feet, disoriented, my head pounding like I'd been hit by an IED. When I stumbled back to the CP, everyone was acting like nothing had happened. The LT chewed me out for leaving my post, but I couldn't explain myself. I couldn't remember how I got off that ridge, or what happened during those missing hours. The weirdest part? None of my squad mates remembered seeing the lights. They all acted like it was just a normal patrol. A few days later, I noticed something on my arm. Just above the bicep, there was a small circular scar I didn't recognize. It was red and inflamed, like something had punctured the skin. At first, I thought it was an infection or maybe a bug bite, but when I pressed on it, I felt something hard beneath the skin, like a piece of metal or maybe a chip. I went to the medics, but they brushed me off. "Nothing there," they said, "just scar tissue." But I knew they were lying. After that, the nightmares started. I'd dream about the lights, burning brighter and brighter until they swallowed me whole. And then there were the figures. Tall, shadowy shapes with long, spindly limbs and featureless faces. They'd stand over me, their fingers pressing into the scar on my arm, sending waves of pain through my body. When I woke up, the scar would be burning, and sometimes it would bleed, as if something was trying to force its way out. The dreams didn't stop when I was awake either. I started seeing the figures at night, standing in the corners of my room or just outside my window. They never moved, never made a sound, but I could feel them watching me. The scar wasn't the only thing that stayed with me. I started hearing whispers, not in English or Pashto or any language I recognized, just static-like murmurs that wormed their way into my head, soft at first, but growing louder over time. Sometimes I'd black out just for a few minutes. I'd wake up in strange places, once in the middle of the motor pool, Another time on the roof of the barracks. I tried to tell myself it was just stress, or maybe the side effects of sleep deprivation, but deep down I knew it was more than that. Eventually, the Army decided I wasn't fit for duty. They said it was PTSD, maybe a traumatic brain injury. They put me on lithium and risperidone and sent me home with a general discharge. My family tried to be supportive, but they didn't understand. No one does. When I told them about the lights, the scar, the figures, they just looked at me like I was crazy. But I'm not crazy. I went to civilian doctors, begging them to take out whatever was in my arm, but they all said the same thing. There's nothing there. I don't know what happened to me that night in Paktika. Maybe it was some kind of experimental tech. Maybe it was aliens. Maybe it was something we don't even have words for yet. All I know is that I'm not the same person I was before. I still see the lights sometimes, 3 glowing orbs hovering just out of reach. I still hear the whispers, feel the scar pulsing beneath my skin, and I still see the figures standing in the shadows waiting. Whatever they did to me, I know it's not over, because the scar, it's not just a scar, it's a marker, and someday they're coming back for me.